Welcome to another episode of the Growth Hacking Podcast, Growth Hacking Culture Podcast. In a recent report from the MIT Sloan Management Review, they found out that 79% of the people who answered this report, this research, they saw improvements in efficiency and decision quality because of artificial intelligence. But what is interesting is that they also saw improvements in the morale and other cultural areas. The study found that companies using artificial intelligence reported improvements across 4 key cultural elements: collaboration, collective learning, clarity of roles, and team morale, which is quite interesting. And that's one of the reasons I have invited today Aneace Haddad. One, because he knows about technology. He was a former tech CEO. That's very good. He knows a little bit more about, how do you say, the models, the strategic way of moving forward culture in organizations. He is a McKinsey certified transformational leadership facilitator, and he's also a professional certified coach. Most interesting point is that he's the writer of a book called The Eagle That Drank Hummingbird Nectar. And I was mentioning to Aneace before that it is a book that is quite compelling because it's quite relatable for leaders, especially, who start listening to this little voice behind their heads saying, you have to change. This is not the life that you wanted to have. So the book itself is a powerful and thought-provoking book that draws on the Aneace specific extensive background in technology, leadership, mentoring, and coaching to offer people a unique perspective on personal and professional growth. And I guess my assumption, my hypothesis is that it follows the story of a CEO that was quite inspired, I guess, by his personal life, where this CEO learns this meaning of the purpose of true leadership. And it's not about having all the answers, but about knowing how to move around towards this unknown, this volatility, ask the right questions, and how to engage with others to foster a culture of continuous learning and innovation. I found it quite compelling. Aneace, thank you very much for being with us today. And I wanted to discuss about your specific book, because that's what is interesting, is that you define like a 5-part self-transformation journey. So, and I wanted to ask you first a little bit more about these 5 steps and how can artificial intelligence have a role in the development of this next generation of mindful leaders. What's your take on that, Aneace?
Hi, Ivan. That's a huge, big question. I love how you opened, and I love your energy. So how to link all that together? Well, let me just give a little bit background here to what you were saying a minute ago. Around 20% of the book is, as you guessed, about me. Or 20% of the book comes from my own experience. So I built a tech company, payment software company in the south of France, grew it to 30 countries, sold it in 2007 when I was 47 years old. And I discovered I liked people better than computers, a long process of transformation. And so at 50, I was really grappling with this transformation of letting go of who I was as a tech CEO. I had written 2 books on payment systems at the time. I was speaking at conferences around the world, letting go of that identity and moving towards something that felt a lot more real for me, that had to do with others, with people. So that's what brought me into executive coaching and leadership facilitation. That transition is what I write about in my book. So that was when I was 50. 20% of the book comes from my own experience. Most of it is fictional. I wrote a first version that was not fictional. It was just kind of a how-to book on transformation. But I threw it in the trash can because it was too boring, and then I really wanted to write fiction. So it was much more challenging. However, I think it produces something better. Now, how does that relate to AI? What I see is that transformation I was going through back then is something that I see very frequently with senior executives. However, it's happening more and more, faster and faster, and younger. And I see AI as one of the things that are driving that. We had COVID driving it. We had then Ukraine driving it. AI coming in with ChatGPT. These things are happening faster and faster and forcing us to let go faster, let go more easily with what we knew was true before and adapt. So it's a book really designed for leaders to learn to develop that more flexible mindset, which I had to do when I was 50 and which most people go through, but now we all have to go through it much more frequently. So AI fits into that from a direct standpoint, and then there are tons of indirect standpoints that I haven't completely understood yet.
What is funny, Aneace, is that AI as such, so we have been discussing about it for the last 20 years. And probably 20 years ago, we thought that we were going to start using AI in a more rapid manner. We were expecting like to really have discussions with really human-like tools. And what has happened is that it took a little bit of time so that AI understands our natural way of communicating, right? And only like 1 year ago, when ChatGPT started to blossom or to be known by the masses, this is where the moment where really we feel near to what AI can deliver in order to support us. But it is a polarizing topic because for some, it is perceived as a threat to my job. For some, it's an opportunity to do less of the boring stuff that we do in our day. And this less boring stuff is what takes most of our lives, especially when we are in corporate, right? We do a lot of administrative things that it is not fun and it's not helping me develop have my potential. If I am a CEO or a senior leader, well, why should I spend time going through slides of 100 slides to understand a challenge? So how can we help these leaders do the jump of acceptance that this is happening? Also related to what you mentioned before, this part where you say it is so difficult to let go of our own identity. So how can we embrace the change, say AI is here, and how can we help these leaders to do the move to embark on how can I use it? Because at the end is you don't need to be technical, but you need to have like process oriented in order to ask the right questions. You cannot say to AI, hey, give me some tips on how to manage motivation of my team. It needs to be a little bit more contextual. How can we help people to move out from this area? I don't like it because it's going to replace me to it can help me to do better my job and accelerate my transformation to wherever I want to go.
Yeah. Something I've seen, I've had conversations with clients in offices when I'm working with a client on a project, developing a retreat, a workshop for their leaders, and I'll be talking to 2 or 3 people as we're developing this, and I'm surprised at how many people are using ChatGPT without saying that they're using it. Because so I've used it, for example, to do a run sheet for a 2-day workshop. You put in a few words, boom, you get a run sheet that comes out, and then you just tweak it a little bit, and then in half an hour, you've done something that usually would take several hours to do. And I mentioned that to someone. We designed a run sheet instantly for a new idea for an exercise, And I did it with ChatGPT, and they said, the two people in the room both said that they also used it, but they hadn't told anybody.
Huh.
So I think people are exploring it. There's still a feeling of, if I use it, does that mean that I'm not working as much? Does that mean that I'm cheating? There's still some confusion on that. I think, so you said, how can I motivate people using ChatGPT? How can I motivate my people? I think you can absolutely do that. I've played with it in that way. So saying, here's a situation. I'm an executive. I have this problem. Give me some ideas. And boom, it brings up some ideas. Some of those ideas are more interesting than others. You go down a little, you can go down the rabbit hole and get a lot of information very quickly. So you can self-coach yourself in your leadership. And what I've noticed with ChatGPT specifically, I haven't played with a lot of other tools, is that it tends to be quite, well, it's extremely, it wants to help you. So it responds very cheerfully. And it tends to be centered. So it tends to tell you, yes, this is useful. This is also useful. And that also is useful. So it gives you ideas that you might not have thought about. So I think that it's a powerful tool for leaders to self-reflect and have what typically they would pay a coach for, to self-reflect. So that means the coach has to work at a different level. It's not just those levels.
Exactly. That's what when you were mentioning that, I was asking myself, but is it self-coach or self-mentoring? Do you get the answers? And you are right. ChatGPT will not tell you the answers. He will give you options. But then there is your cognition, your experience that has to pick up the right approach.
Yeah.
And it's good to have it on the flow of work, like on the moment when you need it. Because a coach, okay, I have my meeting in a couple of days, in a couple of weeks, and in the meanwhile, you will forget what you wanted, what was your purpose. But here, at least you have a starting point to take an action. And that's,
exactly.
I guess, what it's all about with for the use of artificial intelligence. And one point that I have to highlight, and you said quite right, is that the coach has to find a new role, right? Because the easy thing of investigating options in coaching, maybe you can get it through ChatGPT, but the difficult part of motivating someone to make it happen, to have the feedback about the results, that still is a very human area.
The coach will notice emotions. The coach will notice body language. The coach will notice the way the client phrases a question, how maybe the shoulders slump a little bit while they're talking, and then something else talks and they speak faster. The coach will notice those things, and they'll give that feedback. ChatGPT can't see that. Now, I can very easily imagine a ChatGPT type of tool for a coach that's listening, for example, to the conversation, and maybe is saying, as you're listening to the conversation, you have a transcript, and then the tool maybe is suggesting, here's a question you might want to ask. Exactly. Here's another question you might want to ask. And it can give ideas to the coach on how to say. So ask the person how they're feeling. Ask the person. So it can be a tool that really, really expands that. But it forces the coach to really focus on what it is to be human. That's the real added value. And I think it's going to be the same thing for leadership. I think it's everywhere. Everybody knows this. I mean, it forces us to be more human than in the past, because the robotic side of what we tend to do can be done already by AI.
That's true. I'm pretty sure that you have a bunch of friends or even clients that have a little bit of misunderstanding about what artificial intelligence is. And I can tell you already, like my bunch of friends is the same. So they don't know what it is. They may think it is bias. There is discussion about the biases of artificial intelligence. There is the discussion about, yeah, but it's not a human. It cannot help me. I mean, the structure, the way it has been programmed, it is based on how our brain processes a lot of information. We take quick decisions because we define what is a pattern, and a pattern is very often defined by how many times we have been doing the same. What is our context, our environment? So if I was in an environment where like let's say the South American environment, men have to be the real people directing the family. Okay, that has been repeated so many times that, of course, I will take it like this is the normal, the standard. And my artificial intelligence that is in my brain is telling me by default, this is it. But then it is about, this is where either coaching or a journey of self-awareness can go through steps in order to redefine new norms, new patterns inside of your brain. But that's very difficult to understand for people. So what is the biggest misunderstandings that people around you are saying about artificial intelligence, that it works or it doesn't work, but what exactly they are criticizing?
Wow. So I read stuff like you do. I see what people are talking about. And I like how you've structured the question. Putting that aside, what they're talking about on TV, on YouTube, on the articles and stuff, what am I seeing? I'm just not seeing many people really asking about it right now. It hasn't really come into people's lives in a way that people are really talking about it. I don't know many people talking about AI a lot. In these anecdotes of people using it without saying that they're using it. And when you say, hey, I'm using it, they say, oh, well, I'm using it too. From that perspective, I do see people playing with that. I think there are some fears that I've seen in my, again, staying away from everything that's been written about what have I experienced. I do see some fears that of people listening to the very negative reports on AI and getting scared. I do think there's some scary stuff potentially with it. We know that it can be abused. We know that social media has been abused. So we know that people are going to try to abuse it in the same. All of that is there. But I try not to put much energy in it because I don't know how to deal with those big macro subjects. I look at it from my little keyhole, and I see it. I like how you described that the patterns. So artificial intelligence is just replicating our patterns. So I like to see it as AI can help push me personally to expand my view of what is it to be human and understand what is it that is just pattern stuff that can be replicated by machines, and what is it that is really, really human. And I love that it pushes me to explore that. And when I'm playing with AI, I'm curious because I'm exploring the mass patterns of humankind. And when I see that, I think, okay, well, it exists already. What is it that's human beyond that? I think for me, that's personally a very interesting question for my own growth and development. So I stay away from macro questions because that's very depressing and I don't know how to deal with it.
Aneace, I wanted to get back to this path of self-development that you explore inside of your book, and your book has these 5 parts where that is a little bit about how to transform our lives, professional or personal, how to deal with change. And what I like is that is a structure that is based on not only kind of human psychology, but also based on the typical path and cycles that senior leaders have got, and there is a little bit more of entering into the areas of self-development, but with science behind that, because I didn't feel the fluff, that like something that it could be like a little bit like Chopra talking about quantum physics and the way we learn, that a little bit for engineers, it's a little bit like, what the hell is happening here? So, and you talk about this path, you talk about this level of how do you enter into asking the right questions around the comfort of the status quo. You talk about that what prevents us, these limiting beliefs that we have in, no, I'm not capable, this is not for me, no, I have a family, I cannot do that move. All this crazy stuff. How do we define ourselves, this illusion that we have, that you mentioned, like for instance, that the fact that I'm being defined by the role that I had in a company. How do we get rid of this and we say, who am I exactly? So it is like a path towards self-awareness. How do you go and say, the hell with it, I can lose the control? It's not about knowing exactly what is going to happen next, which is quite difficult because our brain likes to forecast the future. And when we cannot know what's happening tomorrow, we feel like with the stress, and then you finally discuss about this joy, like kids of discovery, like new thing, and you become thirsty despite of any age. By the way, Aneace, we are not that far in terms of age, and I can tell you this curiosity, we can have it. I think that I have rediscovered with age. I had it when I was in the 20s, and suddenly I don't know what the hell happened in the 30s, that my level of curiosity decreased. I was just doing stuff. I was just wanting to keep my social status, my money, and I didn't have any more curiosity. And I thought that curiosity was about reading books. The hell no, it's not that. So coming back to this transformational journey, how would you define it for someone who is already listening to this small voice? There is change coming. You need to take an action. Otherwise, your life is going to end up without you designing it. How would you explain it to someone who is in that set of consideration?
Yeah. So that's exactly, so your comments are exactly why when I write it as a how-to book, it's very boring, because it's just telling stuff, and executives, senior executives, people like me build companies and stuff and running companies, that you don't really want a how-to book on how to change yourself and become a better person and personal transformation, all that. That feels fluffy. So writing it as a fiction, as a story with a person who's going through it, is a little bit different. The first step is developing, I call it entering the path. It's the first chapter. It's finding a deep desire for the change. It can't come from, oh, I have to change because the world is going to go on, and it has to come from some excitement of, I want to change. And for each person, they find it in a different way. This is a story in the book of a man who found it in his way, but a lot of times it comes after rejecting it. So we reject it, we don't want to change, we want the status quo, we want to stay comfortable, but at some point we say, okay, enough. Let me just change and move. Let me move forward because I want more. I'm still alive. I want to continue growing. At some point, there's a realization like that. That needs to happen. That's chapter 1. Most people have had that. They've had that many times in their lives. It's a matter of recognizing it and then consciously saying, okay, now I'm going. I'm moving. The second chapter is it's learning to look at all the patterns that we've developed, the negative beliefs and all that, but looking at it with tenderness and with awe, with tremendous respect, that our brains are so complex 99.9% of the patterns we have are very effective. But there are sometimes tiny percent of patterns that are not so effective. And they develop because they were effective in the past, but they're no longer effective. And when I'm changing, some of those patterns that used to be very effective are no longer. Now I need to recognize them, recognize the power that they have, honor them, respect them, and you're not going to destroy old patterns. You can create new patterns. So that's what that part of the book is, starting to recognize. What is it in my beliefs that are getting in the way that used to serve me? What kind of new beliefs do I want to develop? And then there are 3 chapters on letting go. The first one, letting go of labels. So I call it detaching from the illusion of self. We have all these labels. I'm a man in Singapore. I'm an expat. I'm an American living in Singapore, French speaking, having come from France. I'm a former tech CEO. I'm a father. I'm a stepfather. All of these words. I'm an executive coach. All these words are labels. And we become attached to them. And when we hold the labels too hard, then we become fixed and we can break. So it's the sense of rigidity. So that chapter is about loosening our grip so that the labels are there, but we're not holding them tight. So that when those labels move, when change happens, we don't break. New labels can come in more easily. So the idea is visually, I like visually, I'm holding something, I loosen my grip. 3 areas. One area is the label. The next one is on control. If I'm holding for control like this, which all executives grow and they get to where they are because they're holding control. They have the answers. They have solutions. And then they come to a certain point when the only way to go further is to say, I don't have the answers anymore. I don't have the solution. I hire people that have solutions. And then when change happens, they have to say, okay, even the people I hired don't have the solutions for where we're at. And if I'm still holding like this, I'll break. So if I can have a loose control, still have control. I still need KPIs. I still need budgets. I still need to achieve my objectives. I still need to empower my people to achieve their objectives. But I need to have some looseness there so that things can move, new things can come in. It just changes easier. And the third one is one you described I like the most. It's being a lifelong beginner, I call it letting go of my authority and expertise, which was my hardest after I sold my company. Letting go of the authority and expertise, being a tech CEO, founder, an expert in my industry. There's a lot of juicy value in that. And when you let go of it, at first you grieve. There's grief. There's a part of you that's dying that was very valuable. And then you think, how can I be valuable again if I don't have that? I shouldn't let go of that. That's my only value. And you start learning that maybe I have value beyond that. When I first began coaching, a lot of people wanted advice. What would you do with a board? You had a board of directors. What would you do when you're raising capital with investors? And it was powerful to give advice because there's value. And then when I started discovering that maybe my value is not in my knowledge, it's not in my experience, not in my expertise, where else could my value be? For me, it was listening, being someone who people felt could hear them and could understand them without judging them. We each need to, and that's the final chapter there, how do we find our value that is not in the doing? So yeah, and it's not just about work. It's also personal life. There are a lot of people that feel like, if I'm not producing for the family, you mentioned men in South America, and it's not only South America, it's all over the world. If I'm not producing for the family, I'm not bringing in money, I'm not working.
What am I?
then I have no more value.
Yeah.
Will I still be loved? Will I be appreciated? It's very hard to find something beyond that and find that I can have that. I can still do these things, but I'm valued for something else. So it's quite a rich area of discovery.
Aneace, I related quite a lot to my personal story, and I want to use this opportunity so that we can have a discussion about something that is almost like a coaching discussion that I want to have, where when I look at my personal story, the moment breaking from my corporate life to do something that I found more meaningful, the thought started 10 years before that of the moment when I did it. 10 years, can you imagine? Because we have this natural resistance with a lot of bullshit that we put in our head in order to do the move. Oh, I'm not ready because I don't have capital to do something that I want to do. I need a lot of expertise. I will need the right, I don't know, co-founder to do it. The story about the family and the relationship that we have with financial. With the financial. So we like being protected in our present, which is status quo. I don't move because there is so much risk. And I have the impression that this is in the head of a lot of people. All my friends, I don't do coaching. I have discussions with people. I like knowing a little bit. A lot of the people have got a moment where they ask themselves the right question to change, that they are not living the life that they wanted, but then they started filling up with all the bullshit that I had for 10 years. And to be sincere, at the end in my personal life, the decision of moving from the status quo of my comfortable corporate life to entrepreneur, I didn't take it. It was my brain who took it. And when I'm saying that the effects of not living the life that you want, it generates burnout. And that's what happened to me. And it can happen to many. You also mentioned the fact that today, the younger generation are even more sensitive to that effect. So in my generation, we were going into status and money, and that's why the reason why we were working for someone. Today, other things have become important for Generation Z, so they break in a quicker manner, because if they are not living this full priority that they have in their life, then I have seen young generations breaking after 3 or 6 months in the corporate life because it is not what they were expecting. How can we support at scale people who have the same pattern? They're like saying, okay, I'm thinking about it, but I have so many limiting, we can call it limiting beliefs in the coaching world, but okay, so much bullshit that we put that becomes our reality. And I think this is the most, the biggest friction that we have to change, what our brain is telling us. How can we do it? How is there a trick, a magic trick to change?
I think, well, everyone will do it at their own speed. Everyone will do it at their own rate. That's a very macro, general reflection that I'm thinking now. In terms of individuals and teams, when I'm working with individuals and teams, and where they're looking at, for example, I need to be a more empowering leader, delegate results and authority rather than delegating tasks. That kind of question, quite often, that need to change starts to come through feedback. They hear it from people around them. They hear it from employees who are not happy. They do 360 assessments and they see it. And then when we're speaking, then we start to explore how important it is for them to shift. When it's important enough, it all happens. When it's not important enough, it'll stay. as an idea until it becomes important. So I would guess for you during the 10 years, if I would have asked you at the beginning, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this transformation for you? What do you think you would have said at the beginning? 10 years before you became a
I think that what I would have said that is super important, I would have given like a 9 out of 10. But then my thought process would have said, no, but I have this, I have this. Maybe it's not that important. Maybe it's a 4, a 5, or a 6. I would have decreased at one moment because all these fears were really anchored.
Yeah. So in the coaching conversation, if you came to me and you said, I have this idea, I'm stuck in my job, I really want to do this other, but I can't get the motivation to really do it. We would have this conversation. I'd ask you 1 to 10. You would think about 9 at first, and then you think about actually maybe just 4. Then I might ask you, what would make it go up? Well, why is it 4 and not 2? Why is there some there? And you'll answer, and I'll ask you, what would make it go higher? You'll say something. And then as you search, you'll start noticing things. Maybe you'll say, if I have a conversation with my wife, because I'm scared that she's not going to support me if I go do this, then you'll say, okay, I'm going to go talk to my wife. And you come back the next time, you say, hey, she thinks it's a great idea. I'm now at an 8. So those kinds of conversations are used. That's what's entering the path. Entering the path is learning to ask those questions. Where am I? The status, there's nothing wrong with status quo. I don't think people have to change. It's more a question of you have something, you have a burning, there's some flame, maybe like a coal, like an ember, and you're trying to blow on it. You feel like it could grow, and then you get scared. You don't blow on it so much, but it's there. It's bothering you. It's niggling at you. That's when these kinds of conversations can be quite powerful.
It's almost like you have transformed like these beliefs that we take as our reality into hypotheses that the person has to validate. So to treat not like our thoughts, not like these are facts. No, they are not facts. It's a hypothesis. Go and validate. I like this approach, the discussion with my wife. I maybe tried, but then it wasn't super consistent. It was the wrong questions that I asked to my wife. Yeah, I totally get it. And I like this approach, Aneace. Coming back to the topic of having work cultures that are more human. So we know a little bit about your background, tech founder, so you believe in that technology can help, empower, unleash the potential of people. So let's do the magic trick. So somebody tells you, Aneace, you are going to be the CEO of this Fortune 500 company. What would you do first to make the workplace more human, considering that you love tech? What would you do? What would it be your first 3 months of focus? So you believe in technology, but you want to have a more human workplace. What would you do?
There are many things to do there, depending on the company. One of the fundamental things that I'm seeing is, especially as work fragments and we can be independent, we can do, there's the gig economy, there's stuff going on. The need for a company to be a vehicle for its employees, partners, customers, shareholders, for them to find purpose, find vision, a story to their lives. That's been important for a long time. There's lots of books that have been written about it, but it's becoming more universally important for companies. It's kind of filling, if pushing the envelope a lot, it's kind of filling the need that over the last 2,000 years, religions provided us. Religions gave us a common story. They gave us a common way of looking at the world. And we knew that other people of the same religion think like us, so we can trust them more easily. It created that environment. And that's, of course, falling apart. However, there is a growing desire and need for companies to provide something similar, not that same thing, but a sense of purpose from a human standpoint. And the purpose is not, I'm going to make more money.
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
going to maximize our profit. It's going to be something that really speaks to people. It's going to be transformational. It will have an impact on the planet. It will, whatever it is that really speaks to people. But that becomes the primary role of top leadership, of promoting that story, keeping it alive and keeping it visible, and making sure that everything matches and fits that and doesn't go against it. Yeah, so there would be work like that to do. First at the very top, the next team down, and the next team down. It's all.
It has to start from the top, right? It cannot be a bottom-up story. Yeah, exactly.
So actually, it starts with whoever I'm speaking with. It starts from whoever you are. If you're looking from a macro perspective and I'm writing a scholarly book, I would say it has to start from the CEO. Practically speaking, it can start from anywhere, because we have lots of examples in the world of somebody in some corner of a company doing something that has tremendous impact, and then it spreads. We have the opposite. So when I'm having this conversation with teams and I'll tell them they want to build trust, and they say, but there isn't trust up above. 2 levels up, there's a problem. So how do I create trust? I can't create trust. It has to come from them. And then I'll challenge them. Can you break trust? You're a global organization. Can you do one thing that breaks trust around the world with your company? And then they laugh. It's easy to break trust. There are examples. And then they go to court and all those kinds of things. So if it's easy for one person in one office to break trust, and then the whole bank falls down, it's also easy for somebody to do the contrary. Easy. It's possible.
It is possible. That's correct. Yeah.
It's possible. That's if I'm speaking to somebody at that level. If I'm speaking to the CEO, I'm telling the CEO, yes, it starts with you. Obviously, it starts with you. If I'm talking to someone who reports to the CEO, I said, yes, it starts with you. It's your responsibility to work with your CEO and get it. We're all responsible for it. We're all responsible for it.
I love this story, starting with the purpose and then deploying it from the top to bottom. But indeed, for many, even though it is spoken through a lot of organization, it is very difficult for them to find out the right way to implement it, because behind this purpose, there is going to be the definition of a culture. And behind the culture, there is not slogans like posters, like any change management tool, by the way, tells you a little bit about the slogans stuff. Drop that, this shit. It is about what are the rituals that I want to make in the organization, what the senior management or the mid management should constantly replicate in terms of behaviors, because we observe behaviors, and it is not about what is written in the website with the values of the company. It is about what I observe. So if I observe my boss being still an asshole, of course, I would think that naturally that in order to get there, I need to replicate the same patterns. And so change is not going to happen. And I like also what you mentioned about this guerrilla approach, that change could be like a small group. And you are right. If it is difficult to break trust, it is also possible, but not as easy as breaking it, because we always perceive the bad things. Bad things can break the atmosphere in more easy way than a good element being Jesus inside of the company. Sorry for using Jesus in that conversation. Oh my God.
There's one very common conversation is a leadership team complaining that the next level down doesn't take ownership. And these are peers. It's a very common complaint. Yeah, the next level down, they're taking ownership. We need to do a leadership program to have them take ownership. So I'll start with the leadership team, and I'll ask the question. I'll say, so when you are saying they're not taking ownership, and I need to make them take ownership, and I don't know how, you are coming from the mindset of this is happening to me. If you come from the mindset of I make things happen, that's ownership. And they'll say, yeah, we agree. So then the conversation becomes, what are you doing to encourage these people to not take ownership? What are the subtle things you're doing? And usually you can find subtle things. For example, one leader was loved by his people, but he had the habit of coming to them and saying, beginning of quarter, saying, look, I fought for you guys. I fought for us. You know, I'm on your team. I fought for us, but they really want these objectives. I couldn't get them to bring him down. I couldn't get the CEO to lower the objectives. I fought for us. We have to do it because the CEO really wants it. That is an attitude of it's happening to me. I'm not making it happen. So I'm not taking empowerment. I'm not being empowered. I'm demonstrating that it's happening to me. Of course, they're going to think, yes, it's happening to us. That was a real leader. When he realized that, he changed, because he doesn't want to be like that. He just didn't realize that was the impact. So now when he speaks to them, he says, look, we had a conversation. I agree, and I suggested this is what we need to commit to. And they accepted that. We don't, whether that was a disagreement with his boss or not, different story. But with his people, this is his decision. He's making it happen. It's not happening to him. There are so many examples. There are many ways of doing KPIs that make people think that it's happening to them because they're not part of the discussion. So there are lots of little subtle ways that can be that create a culture of a disempowerment.
I like that. For a long time, for most of my career in corporate, the discussions of doing SMART goals was always on the mouth of everybody, but who really has embraced SMART goals or have been motivated because you wrote a sentence that is non-relatable to humans? I kind of learned like 5 or 6 years ago the use of OKRs, who looks a little bit more empowering for people in order to develop a vision, and where there is still the possibility to bring ideas together in order to reach inspirational goals. What I like about this conversation, Aneace, is that in order to humanize the workplace, there needs to be certain an angle that is rooted in how do we motivate and develop intrinsic motivation from your employees. Purpose is something that that is quite key. And kind of, I was thinking that this 5 steps journey that you describe in your book could be easily applicable for workplaces that are more human.
That's exactly right.
And what I even like the most is that, and you said it, is the artificial intelligence is a tool that can empower us to have more options, because we have a problem always when, oh, what can I do when we are alone? So either we have someone to discuss, to debate, or either we on the spot when we have a question, we can go to ChatGPT and have a discussion. He will not tell you the answer. He will tell you this is what, and then your critical thinking can tell you, okay, I'm going to explore that hypothesis.
Yeah.
I love the way you translated any of our our realities into hypotheses that we need to go and simply validate. If every employee was empowered to do that, that would be really amazing. And technology, again, can help you out to do it at a bigger scale. Anything that I've forgotten, Aneace, out of this, summarize the key points?
No, that's excellent. That's beautiful.
Aneace, how can people, if they want to reach you out to ask you a little bit more questions about how to be a more mindful leader, or understanding a little bit more these principles of transforming your life into something that you really wanted and you are not daring to do, how can they reach you out?
So my website is the easiest. It's just my first name, www.aneace.com, ANEACE.com. And everything is there. I have a very uniquely spelled first name, so it was possible to find the website for it. My book is there. There are lots of blog posts. There's a huge amount of information there that people can browse through. There's a way to contact me through there. That's the easiest way, ANEACE.com.
Okay, so we have the link for the book and we have your website. I have to mention, in the type of book that you have written, it is quite powerful in the right moment. I still remember that, of course, the monk that sold his Ferrari, which also uses like an analogy of a personal journey in order to help people go into that transition. I got it just in the moment. I read it just in the moment where I was breaking up from my corporate life. And the meaning that it had at that moment, it was quite relevant, because you said it, that when you tell a story like a how-to, especially if you are a senior leader, you will not, why should I trust Aneace? Why is he better than me? But if it is a story that happened to someone and that you feel relatable as in a third person, that makes it so powerful, Aneace. I really love the way you have written your book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank
you. It was lovely to spend time with you. It was lovely to speak French just before the recording.
Yes, that was wonderful. Wonderful meeting you, Ivan.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. We talk very soon. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.